South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers, and Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Monday edition of Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And as always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, where you can join the conversation. We got a lot to get to on the show today. As always, you could jump in the conversation. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also can send us a message right to us from the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. And of course, you can chime in on the stream as we are on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We got the big three today. All right. We got the latest from Eagles camp. What's going on with Jalen Hurts? What's going on with the Eagles? We're going to get into that coming up on the show. Also, Phillies atop the National League East. They have won the most games in a row to start the month of August since 1991. I saw that this weekend on the Phillies broadcast, and I was like, has it really been that long? Like, not even the Phillies that won the World Series pulled this off. Like, that's insane. So, the Phillies are just absolutely in fuego right now. We'll get to that as well. But if you have the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, you already got the alert about this Ben Simmons news. So, we can't not address the Ben Simmons news. All right? Because this is, for all intents and purposes, one of the most insane situations I've ever seen. Because you have a guy who literally ended the year, a year that the team fell short of their goals, a year where you really thought that the team was going to go somewhere, right? Like, that was the hope. The idea was this team was a conference finals team, right? That was the hope. That was the expectation. And then the season ends. Everyone's frustrated with Ben Simmons. And then that frustration is fueled by this Woj report that, well, the Sixers and his agent, Rich Paul, they had a meeting. They had a conversation. You're like, okay, that's interesting. They talked. All right. What do I do with that? Right. And you're assuming, well, if we're talking about the future, is he going to get moved? And then the report comes out, well, they don't want to move him. They would like to bring him back, and they have a plan to work with him this offseason. And then there's the Sixer fans, they're freaking out because he bought a house in California and he's spending all of his time locking lips with his current girlfriend on, in public PDA going on, right? Public displays of affection for those who are the uninitiated to acronyms. And you think, all right, well, maybe Ben's just taking a break from basketball. Then the report comes out from Woj, oh, the Sixers are trying to maybe make a move on the trade deadline. You're like, whoa, okay. How is that going to happen? Then you look around, you're like, okay, he didn't get traded at the draft. Then the report comes out from my man Scoop B that the Sixers and the Warriors are re-engaged conversations, and the Sixers are trying to move him, right? And you're like, all right. And then you have the Jason Dumas report, NBA reporter for Bleacher Report, says that there's cut off communications. Jake Fisher reports that Simmons and the Sixers aren't talking. And you're like, wait a minute. We had a lot more smoke here. And then Woj says the Sixers would be interested in making a deal. And you're like, well, wait a minute. We got a lot of smoke here. Then today, this audio comes out. If you didn't hear it already, if you didn't see it at 973ESPN.com, on ESPN's daily NBA show, The Jump, with Rachel Nichols. It's on every day. And Kendrick Perkins, who played in the NBA for over a decade, won an NBA championship, is still well connected to a lot of guys around the league, is arguably a very controversial figure because he tends to get on Kevin Durant's nerves. This is what he said this afternoon on top of everything that I just said.
It's a possibility it could happen. Ben Simmons is not answering the phone calls. He don't want to be with the 76ers. And from what I heard, he's willing not to report to training camp. And will go as far as it takes for him to get out of Philly. So I say with the smoke is fire.
Did you see Perk just slip that in there at the end?
I did.
You say that last part again? You've heard that he is
willing not to show up to training camp, that he would not show up to training camp, and that he's willing to sit out for however long until he gets out of Philly.
wow.
Wow is right. That was Kendrick Perkins from ESPN's The Jump today. So let me get this straight. There's all this smoke. There's all this fire going on. And then we're just supposed to ignore it. We're supposed to act like it's not something there. On the same day that a video comes out of Ben Simmons hitting threes, working out with Rajon Rondo, working on drills. You know, it's the rite of passage for the summer, as Mike Gill put it. You know, it's part of the summer ritual. Videos of Ben Simmons working out happens every year. And as I said to Mike Gill earlier on the Sports Bash, it's not that Ben Simmons purposely put this out there. The fact of the matter is that Ben Simmons and his people know there was people filming him, and they knew that someone was going to put it out there. So while they weren't directly saying, we want this video out there, they certainly weren't trying to stop it. They certainly weren't cutting it off. They certainly weren't trying to stop it from happening. So as a result, all of this fiasco is going around Ben Simmons. And as I've said once, I've said it twice, I've said it 100 times. This needs to end. This needs to stop. I understand the Sixers don't want to give up Ben Simmons for a bag of basketballs. And they're not just going to give him away to any team that wants him. No matter how bad the Timberwolves or Golden State or any of these other organizations might want him. All right? But you have to not just let this sit. And I understand that if you are a team like the Sixers, your perspective is, we would love to have Damian Lillard. Well, you know what? I would love a Lamborghini, but I can't afford it. See, the problem in this conversation is I think that Daryl Morey and the Sixers are trying to play the long game, and the rest of the NBA is not really that into playing the long game. The Sixers are trying to get the best deal possible. The Sixers are trying to work the market. They're trying to just get something good in return for Ben Simmons because they know that he has value. And by the way, other NBA teams know he has value too. But if you're waiting for the best deal, you may have to pass up on the best deal possible. You might wait so long for Damian Lillard, you might not ever get him. Because there's no guarantee that Lillard is going to ask for a trade. There's no guarantee that Lillard's going to force his way out. And if he does force his way out, are you really sure that Portland wants Ben Simmons in return? Are you sure that's not going to take a lot more than just Ben Simmons to get a guy like Damian Lillard? There's a lot of what ifs that go into this. So that's why I'm saying this has got to end. And I don't really care at this point exactly how it ends, but I just think it needs to end. We need to move on with our lives. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. As always, text board is open, 609-403-0973. Also, get a message show directly through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank Seattle City. And, of course, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Now, the other thing I want to hit on with you guys, we will get to the Phillies stuff because the Phillies swept the Mets. Huge weekend for the Phils. We talked a lot of Phillies on the Sports Bash Saturday this past weekend. But Jeff Mosher was on the Sports Bash today for Football at 4. And there's a lot of information out there about Eagles camp, all right? And we've been trying to keep you updated on every single little bit right here on 97.3 ESPN and on 97.3ESPN.com. There's still speculation about why has Nick Sirianni not named Jalen Hurts the starter. But the reality is that Hurts is taking the first team snaps every single day in camp. Every single day in camp, he's out there taking first team snaps. So they are functioning like he's the starter. But in order to understand all that's going on, listen to what Mosher had to say about Jalen Hurts so far in camp.
The coaches feel like he's doing okay. You know, they didn't say, we weren't told that the coaches feel like he's doing great. We weren't told that the coaches are really disappointed. They feel like it's somewhere in the middle. I think one word that was used to describe it was an average camp so far. And, that might be disappointing to some. It might be expected for others. I think it's way too early to determine what that's going to mean for the season.
It's way too early to determine what it means. And part of the reason why it's too early to determine is because of something I think that has gotten forgotten about by a lot of people who think they're being objective, but they're really not. Jalen Hurts this year is in another offense. Think about it. From Alabama to Oklahoma, to Doug Peterson, to Nick Sirianni. This is now his fourth different offense he has had to learn as a football player. He had to be a guy who was evolving as a quarterback at Alabama. Remember, when he first came in, he was a highly touted recruit that was a mobile quarterback. But over time, he developed into a better passer. And then he took that next step at Oklahoma in the offense that the Sooners run that produced guys like Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray going number 1 overall. And that attracted a guy like Shane Rattler to come to Oklahoma. And he is a highly touted player his upcoming year in college football. Then he comes to Philadelphia. He has no regular offseason. He has let's call it a very unusual training camp because of the COVID world we lived in last year, which, yeah, we are better off now than we were last year. But people, I think, forget at times how uncomfortable and difficult to do anything last year was. He gets shoved in late in the year after the Eagles finally stopped putting Carson Wentz out there to basically throw games away as Carson Wentz was doing. Then Peterson gets fired, and now here comes Sirianni with a whole new offense, a whole new coaching staff. So all Jalen Hurts is known is changes. The script keeps changing on him. And I think that's difficult for anybody to work through. And I think that he needs as many snaps as possible in the preseason in order to make sure that he is up and ready to go. You can't expect someone to just have it all figured out immediately. I don't care who it is. I don't care how talented. Unless their name is like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. And guess what? There's only one of each of those guys on the planet. Unless you got a Peyton Manning. These are once in a lifetime type of players, okay? 3 out of 300 quarterbacks on planet Earth can do this per se. Drew Brees is retired, so I can't go to him. There's only a handful of guys who could do this, who can walk into any offense and figure it out, have it working. So guess what? Jalen Hurts is not one of the 4 greatest quarterbacks of the last 20 years. So whatever happens on Thursday night, unless he completely implodes, I'm going to preach patience. Because Jeff Mosher also brought up this point today on Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN with Mike Gill.
Obviously, you start to get a little deeper into camp. The offense should be pretty much all installed. So you'll see some more comfortability that the offense will have with the plays that they're asked to execute. They'll start to see the defensive looks they've been seeing all throughout camp, which have been very varied. And I think that that's one of the reasons that all the quarterbacks have kind of held on to the ball a little bit longer, because Jonathan Gannon's defense is doing a lot of stuff up front and pre-snap that might make them hold on to the ball a little bit.
So Jonathan Gannon's defense is so good at camp that's got all 3 quarterbacks, Hurts, Flacco, and Mullins, holding on to the ball too long. So let me ask you guys out there, who are listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Are you encouraged that Jonathan Gannon's defense is so good that it's frustrating all three quarterbacks in camp? Or are you worried that maybe Nick Sirianni's offense might be a little bit too much for the quarterbacks to digest? It could be one or the other or both. You can join the conversation right now. Text board 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can join the conversation in the chat section below. Also, you can send a message right through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. There's a multitude of ways to get a hold of the show. I'm Josh Hennig here on Game Night, hanging out with you, Power Hour right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. You can get involved in the conversation. Also, we'll get to the Phillies a little bit as well, because the Phillies, what a crowd this weekend. I know part of it was because they were honoring all the great players and all the great people, from Mr. Montgomery to Manny Trio to Roy Halladay on Sunday. But for the fact that the Phillies have now swept the Mets, they have taken sole possession of first place. They have embarrassed the Mets. I'm curious, what does that mean for the Phillies moving forward? Because the Mets going to have a bunch of series coming up with the Dodgers and the Giants. Now, the Phillies play the Dodgers this week, but the Mets have a much tougher schedule down the stretch. And there's an argument to be made that the Phillies can keep winning each week. If they can salvage this year with the Dodgers, even though their big guns are not going in this series, if they can not get overrun by the Reds, if they can persevere through this tougher part of their schedule and get to the part of the schedule where it gets a lot easier for them, do you believe in the Phillies? I'll tell you what I think coming up next right here. 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, live at the Matt Black Kia Studios. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
The Eagles are back, and the Sports Bash has them covered like nobody else in South Jersey.
E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
Listen for training camp updates every weekday at 4 p.m. during Football at 4 with Jeff Mosier, Adam Kaplan, and Andrew DeCecco. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5:30. It's 97.3 ESPN.com Eagles insider Jeff Kerr and NFL insider Rob Motti from the Associated Press joins the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 5:30. It's the best Eagles and NFL training camp coverage around, and it's only on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Touchdown! The Eagles win! The Eagles win!
On 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's exclusive radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football.
New Jersey. you a Philly sports fanatic? Do you love to travel and cheer on our hometown squad across the country? You need to check out Philly Sports Trips. Join your fellow Philly sports fans and book your trip with Philly Sports Trips to cheer on the Birds this fall as they travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Travel packages can include chartered airfare, hotel, rides to and from the airport and stadium, game tickets, tailgate parties, entertainment, and more. Check out all the great Vegas travel packages Philly Sports Trips offers. Visit phillysportstrips.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here. Game Night Monday edition, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. As always, you can join the conversation. Of course, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app is free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. You can send a message right to the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can text in 609-403-0973 on the text board. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can join the conversation in the comment section there as well. I promise we get to the Phillies because, honestly, if it wasn't for the Ben Simmons news and what Jeff Mosher said about Jalen Hurts today, I probably would have started the show with the Phillies. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but I was glued all weekend. I could not watch the Phillies this weekend. And part of the reason why I had to watch the Phillies was because I wanted to know if this team was for real. I wanted to know if this team was what I saw and said they were. You know, how many times do we have expectations for teams and it doesn't play out the way we expect or the way we hope for a variety of reasons? You know, maybe injuries come up, maybe players underperform, maybe the other team's better than we expected. Whatever it may be, your expectations may not always match what you see on the field or on the court or on the ice. In terms of the Flyers, by the way, the Flyers gave Carter Hart a new contract extension. For more details, go to 973 ESPN.com, 973 ESPN mobile app for the latest on Carter Hart's new contract extension, which I think is a pretty good deal for the Flyers, honestly, considering what he can be and what the market is calling for right now. But back to the Phillies. I think that this team gave you something over the weekend. They showed you something that we weren't sure about up until the last couple weeks. Before they acquired Kyle Gibson and before they brought in Ian Kennedy and before they went on this incredible winning streak, the Phillies were a good but not great team. The Phillies were that team that you looked at and you said, you know what, this could be fun. But if you were someone like me, you were getting frustrated with them. Bullpens blowing games. Get around like, what's going on here, folks? Tuesday, July 27th. The Philadelphia Phillies attendance was 20,000 people. Then they had the doubleheader to make up for the rain postponement and then the COVID issue with the Nationals. So they had to make up the game because of things out of their control. Then they go to Pittsburgh and they lose 2 games they shouldn't have lost. Then Kyle Gibson gets a start and they win. And they keep winning. And they've won every game this month. And they come back from Pittsburgh and Washington. And there's a lot of us who are wondering, are the Philly fans invested in this team? Because it's now or never. Well, guess what? 30,000 people Friday, 37,000 on Saturday, and 39,000 on Sunday. That changes how you look at this team in terms of what everyone else is thinking. People are buying into this team. People are stepping up and putting their money forward to come see this team. Listen, before this past weekend, the last time they had this kind of attendance was the Yankees 2-game series where it was 38,000 each night. And you could argue there might have been more Yankee fans at those games than there were Philly fans. And yes, there were a good amount of Mets fans at the games this weekend. But that crowd was loud. That crowd was unrelenting in their support for this team. When Kennedy had to come into those two games and lock down those saves, the crowd got loud. When Wheeler was staring down the Mets in that game yesterday, going all in on the day they retired Roy Halladay's uniform, he was super focused, right? And you could tell that crowd, you could hear it. You could feel it through the television. The crowd was feeding off of Wheeler, and Wheeler was feeding off of them. And that's when I knew this team's real. That this team has what it takes to win the division. Now, I'm not promising you they're winning a championship. I totally understand people are like, this team can't win a World Series. I'm not saying they are going to win a World Series. But for an organization that's not been in the postseason in a decade, this is a first step in the right direction. This is step one on a journey that could be a crazy, wild ride all month long. And I'm here for it. And listen, I love football as much, if not more, than almost anybody I know. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a diehard football fan. And I'm going to watch preseason games. I'm going to watch college football games every Saturday. It's in my blood. It's who I am. I go out. I watch my UFC fights every weekend. I'm invested in those things. So for someone like me to turn around and also be this hyper invested in the Phillies, not just because it's my job, but because they got me. They hooked me in. They've drawn me in there. And it looks like I'm not the only one. It looks like there's a lot of people out there who are buying into this Phillies team. And with the Eagles preseason game on Thursday night, that works out because the Phillies play at 1 o'clock. So no conflict. You can see the Phillies and the Eagles. We know that also next week, the Phillies play the Diamondbacks at 3:40 Eastern time in Arizona. No conflict that Thursday. Now, a couple weeks from now, August 26th, there's a conflict. But typically the final preseason game, nobody significant plays anyway. But for two of the three Eagles preseason games, there's no conflict for the Phillies or the Eagles. Sixers are in summer league, so we're not really watching the games die hard unless you're taking Mike Gill's betting advice, which he nailed 110% today. So if you're a sports fan, you can get on the Phillies bandwagon, have a good time. Let it ride. I'm enjoying it. And listen, I don't expect them to go out there and take out the Dodgers in this next series because you got Scherzer, Price, and Urias, so you're probably going to lose at least one of those games, if not two of three of those games. You don't even have a starter announced yet until for Thursday. But you got Nola, you got Gibson for two of the games, so maybe you win one of them. Maybe you get fortunate that Scherzer doesn't go more than 6 innings in a game. You can get to the Dodgers bullpen, or maybe you can get Price worn down a little bit because he hasn't been a starter the entire year. There's a way you can walk out of this with 2 out of 3. I don't think you're sweeping the series, though. Then you got the Reds next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wheeler and Nola bookend that series. It's going to be interesting. I'm fascinated. I'm intrigued. I want to see what happens. I'm bought in. But if there's no, the Reds have great hitting, but their pitching has been suspect. The Reds are one of those teams where you might have to outslug them. You just might have to, or you might have to hope that your pitching just keeps them in check long enough for you to get some runs. Because right now, the Reds are 61-51. They're second place in the National League Central, which is insane because they're 5 games behind the Brewers. If it wasn't for the National League West and their just monstrosity of powerhouses, the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Padres this year, the Reds would be in contention for the wild card right now. The Reds would be right in it. The Reds got a better record than the Phillies, for goodness sake. And the Phillies lead the National League East. So the Reds are a good team. You have 2 straight really, really good teams coming to Citizens Bank Park for the next 2 series. But then the schedule gets interesting because you go out to Arizona and play one of the worst teams of all baseball. Then you get the Padres in San Diego. You come home and play Tampa for 2 games. Then you get Arizona again. Then you go to Washington and Miami. So by the time Labor Day comes around, you can still be looking pretty. The Phillies are in a position to steal our attention in a month where a lot of us start focusing on football. And that's exciting. I asked the question before, should we buy into this team? I've said yes before. I'll say yes now, and I'll keep saying yes. Because no matter how much they frustrated me at times in July, it seems like the guys are getting healthier. It seems like things are turning around, and that's exciting to watch. And I think that the acquisition of Kyle Gibson, Ian Kennedy, and Freddie Galvis has been a bit of a pick-me-up. I think it's been a little infusion of excitement for this locker room, for this clubhouse. I think it's part of the reason why they had success, aside from the fact that I think that they've just finally come around as hitters. Because someone asked a question to me on Sports Bash Saturday, do I think the Phillies have a Cy Young and an MVP candidate? And I said yes. And at the time, I said that I think that Zach Wheeler should be the favorite to win the Cy Young, and I think it's a 75% chance. Now it's probably 80% that he wins Cy Young. Still a small outside possibility he doesn't, but I think that he should be the definitely prohibitive favorite. And then Harper, to me, it comes down to, does Fernando Tatis come back anytime soon, and how does he play? I think if Tatis is healthy, I think he can take the MVP. But if Fernando Jr. is not healthy, you could have a MVP award winner and a Cy Young award winner on the same team in the same season in Philadelphia. It doesn't matter when the last time it happened. That in and of itself is insane. Just to have 2 guys who have won those awards on the same team is rare. You know, when you acquired Roy Halladay, you were adding him to a team that had 2 MVPs on it, and Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard. And then before that, you got to go all the way back to those Phillies teams of the late 70s and early 80s with guys like Mike Schmidt and Steve Carlton, for goodness sake. I mean, you're talking about a long, long time to have that kind of recognition for one Philadelphia team. It's been a while. By the way, for those who are wondering, it was 1980. Carlton won the Cy Young and Mike Schmidt won the MVP the same year. So you're talking about putting Bryce Harper and Zach Wheeler in a category with 2 of the greatest Phillies players of all time. And that could happen this season. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon for all of you. Let's have some fun with this Phillies run. They're back in action tomorrow. Day off today. Hopefully it doesn't cool them off too much. They're back in action tomorrow versus the Dodgers, and we'll have it all covered right here on 97.3 ESPN FM tomorrow at 2:40 on the Sports Bash. Frank Close will have the Phillies mailbag with Mike Gill. Tweet at Frank Close on Twitter with all your Phillies mailbag questions. He'll answer them all tomorrow on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Keep it tuned to 97.3 ESPN.com and 97.3 ESPN mobile app for all of your Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers coverage. 97.3 ESPN mobile app is a way that you can also get a hold of the show as well. You can message the show directly through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can text in 609-403-0973. And we are also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. One more segment next.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles open the 2021 preseason this Thursday night, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Link.
Roethlisberger again, look. He is hit, and football is fumbled. The Eagles have it.
Maryland Mike call all the action starting at 7:30 p.m. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Football season is about to kick off, and that means it's time to list your football future bets on PropSwap. Did you know before the season started last year, the Buccaneers were 60-1 to win it all? Now that's a futures bet. You just never know what can happen. Or hey, maybe you do. Sports bettors cash in early and often when they list long shots on PropSwap. The average monthly seller makes $500 a month on PropSwap just posting and selling tickets. So join them by going to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here, back on Monday's edition of Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM. Of course, we are live on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks First Bank of Seattle City. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can join the show as well. Watch us live in the Matt Black Kia Studios. Of course, Sports Bash with Mike Gill. Game Night with Josh Hennig, and of course, the locker room with Billy Schweim on the weekends as well. Get to your thoughts and comments. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Also can comment through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Send us a message right through the app. Comes right to the show. It's free. Thanks First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Message came in, says, give the Phillies bullpen 2 days rest with this day off with the Dodgers. I'd also sit Rhys Hoskins against Max Scherzer to give him an extra day. I think that both of them make sense. I think that you always want an opportunity to give the bullpen a little bit of rest because they were definitely overworked a bit in the last several days at times. I mean, Rivera just needs to go back down to the minor leagues. I mean, the fact that he couldn't even hold that lead. He gave up 3 straight home runs. I mean, that was so ugly. That drove me nuts. I'm watching that. I'm thinking, you're going to blow this game because Rivera's just can't handle the pressure. If you can't handle the pressure, just get him out of there. Send him to minors. I don't care. Ask Freddie Galvis if he can pitch again. I don't care at this point. I mean, that was horrible on Saturday night. Yeah, that was horrible. But yeah, you're right. The bullpen does need some rest. Obviously, Zach Wheeler going for the complete game shutout did help them as well. So they get the double bang. They get the Wheeler complete game shutout, and they get the extra day today. So now the thing with Rhys against Scherzer, without knowing Rhys Hoskins' splits, I would have to say that giving him another day of rest is probably not a bad thing. Honestly, I think that overall it probably makes sense for him, partly because of the fact that, you know, this whole groin situation is, you never know if something like this, you know, when you're dealing with a groin, it's always a bit of a dicey situation. So, you know, like I said, I don't have Rhys Hoskins splits specifically against Scherzer in front of me. What I do know is that for his career, he's about the same hitter against right and left-handed starting pitching for his career. So I'm not going to sit here and say that that part matters to him as much. He's kind of the same hitter. He's got almost the same slugging percentage against both kinds of starters. About 5/100th of a point difference in the batting average between right versus left. But, you know, listen, it is Scherzer. Scherzer's the beast. And, you know, he's going to go out there and prove that he deserves all the praise being given to him. And I don't think it's a bad idea to sit Rhys Hoskins. I personally like to see him out there just because I think the team is better when he's out there. But I think it should come down to him and the doctor. I don't think it really should come down to Scherzer. Again, I don't have his splits against Scherzer in front of me, but I do think that the general principle, there's not a lot of people who hit well against Scherzer in general. Not many at all. Okay? It just is what it is. Scherzer is that great. He's that talented. So if you're turning to me and be like, you know, Rhys Hoskins, Scherzer, well, you know, it's kind of part of the territory, isn't it? Again, the Phillies got Scherzer, David Price, and Urias are going for the Dodgers Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in that order. It'll be Nola and Gibson are going for the Phillies. We don't have who the one starter is going to be yet. So that'll be interesting because I haven't seen any updates on exactly when Zach Eflin's coming back. I know they're hoping he can come back soon. I know they'd like him to come back as soon as possible. I know that They've been using Ranger Suarez in that kind of patchwork starter role. They're hoping to extend him a little bit more as time goes on, but I think it still comes down to the hitting. The hitters got to keep hitting. The hitters got to keep winning you games, and that's kind of what's been happening so far. The lineup has been getting you there. So it's definitely interesting to see how this goes about, how we move forward to this. Josh Hennig here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN. Of course, the Phillies back in action tomorrow. Here we are, your home for Eagles football as well. Eagles preseason game number 1 this Thursday. And we talked about Jalen Hurts a little bit earlier in the show. And I think that this first preseason game is going to let us know how much of what we're seeing in training camp is real and how much is fake. Okay? This upcoming preseason game is going to tell us, we keep being told how great Jonathan Gannon's defense has been in camp. And we're being told how amazing Josh Sweat is playing and how well-rounded Jordan Mailata has been and how, Jordan Howard is basically outpacing Kerryon Johnson extensively in training camp and how all these different things, you just look at the video and the pictures of Jalen Hurts. He looks like he's in the best condition of his life. So there's so much we're seeing in camp, and I'm fascinated to see how much we've seen in camp is actually what we'll see in a game, what we can actually see against another team. Reports are that Jalen Hurts is throwing a great deep ball in camp. Can he be able to throw that deep ball? Then guess what? Then you have a very dangerous offense. But if you can't get that deep ball off against a preseason opponent this Thursday night, that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've already played a preseason game, by the way. They already got one game of action under their belt. If your defense doesn't play as well against the Steelers as they are in practices and in training camp, if you are overall not doing what you did in practice in the game, then we have to have a conversation about what this team really is. I tend to believe that what you see in these training camps, though, is typically what can happen. So it'll be interesting to see. I tend to believe that the defense will show up on Thursday. I'm most curious about how the offense looks because, like I said, Jalen Hurts, his 4th different offense in 4 years. There's a lot of reports that Flacco and Mullins are holding the ball too long as well in camp. So I'm just curious, how much is that the Jonathan Gannon defense and how much of that is, are these guys absorbing Nick Sirianni's offense well? Is Nick Sirianni's offense a little bit more than expected? Just something to keep an eye on as well. And of course, don't forget, over at 97.3 ESPN.com, 97.3 ESPN Mobile, the latest on Ben Simmons. Reports have been that Ben Simmons and the Sixers are not communicating. And then on ESPN's The Jump today, Kendrick Perkins, former NBA player, current ESPN NBA analyst, dropped this bombshell.
It's a possibility it could happen. Ben Simmons is not answering the phone calls. He don't want to be with the 76ers. And from what I heard, he's willing not to report to training camp. And will go as far as it takes for him to get out of Philly. So I say where the smoke is fire.
Did you see Perk just slip that in there at the end?
I did.
You say that last part again? You've heard that he is
willing not to show up to training camp, that he would not show up to training camp, and that he's willing to sit out for however long until he gets out of Philly. Wow.
Wow is right. If that's where we are with Ben Simmons, and I said this earlier in the show and I'll say it again, the divorce needs to be expedited. I understand that Daryl Morey and Sixers are not giving Ben Simmons up for just anything. But if Ben Simmons is that unhappy and wants out that bad, By the way, I haven't seen anybody from the Ben Simmons camp denying these reports. I've never seen anybody in the Ben Simmons camp saying, nah, all these reports are. This isn't like Damian Lillard, who came out to the media and said, don't believe any report unless I say it. Okay? There's no Ben Simmons. There's no Rich Paul. Nobody's coming out to the media and denying these reports. So that in of itself should tell you that there's probably some validity to this. There's probably something to all this. Again, as Perkins said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you're going to have this many problems, it's time to move on. All right, before I let you guys go, I always like to recap my weekend with the UFC fights. Phenomenal card for a fight card that didn't have a lot of star power. It delivered on action, and it delivered on just really, really, really high level fights. But as always, I am honest to a fault, and I gotta tell you guys, we went 2-2 on the picks, so we split even. So, not the big boom that we've had in past UFC pay-per-views, where we've boomed big and walked away with some nice wins. But Derek Lewis probably fought the worst fight of his life. That was arguably one of the worst fights I've ever seen a heavyweight fight. Derek Lewis literally stood still for 2.5 rounds. He barely moved. He barely did anything. And he only actually tried to punch Ciryl Gane when, I don't know, when he thought he had to. I love all the people who are praising Ciryl. Oh my goodness, Ciryl Gane showed he's a real contender. Did he though? It's pretty easy to hit a non-moving target. It's pretty easy to hit a guy who's barely moving, barely feinting, barely doing anything. I don't know if Gane gets out. I think Gane versus Ngannou is going to be a one-side decision. I think Ngannou is going to destroy Ciryl Gane, and then we're going to have John Jones versus Francis Ngannou in 2022 for the belt at heavyweight. So by the way, overall the picks, we got Derek Lewis wrong, we got Josie Aldo right, we got Ed Herman wrong, we got Tisha Torres right. So 2-2, not bad. Josh Hennig, this is Game Night. Catch you tomorrow.
Friday on Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. The 2021 season gets underway as the Cowboys and Cardinals kick off the preseason from Arizona. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action as the Cowboys square off with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. Football is back. It's the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals. If it's the NFL, it's right here.
Coverage begins at 9:30 on 97.3 ESPN.